This thing's totally radical. It's got a stereo built right in. After months of Facebook doom scrolling and probably looking at hundreds of different combine listings, I finally decided on this 1980 John Deere 8820 Turbo Combine. And now you're probably thinking to yourself, Carson, why would you pick this particular 45-year-old combine? Well, let me explain. This is a picture of my dad driving his John Deere Turbo 8820 with his cousin Steve piloting the Alice Chalmers 7060 right beside him. It's been hanging in his office for as long as I can remember, a relic to the days when he was younger than I am now. And I remember bombarding him with questions when I was a kid, and his eyes would light up as he told me how revolutionary the John Deere 8820 was. According to him, it was the first combine that he drove that actually had some real muscle. And he wasn't kidding. Released in 1979, the 8820 was a game changer for John Deere's lineup. It packed 200 horsepower, blowing the doors off the previous 7700 turbos, 145 horsepower. By 1981, they tweaked the injection pump, cranking it up to an impressive 225 horsepower out of that trusty 6-cylinder Deere engine. This was a beast that finally let farmers run a 12-row corn head. Let's just put it this way. When the 8820 walked into the locker room, all of the other combines suddenly remembered that they had somewhere else they needed to be. And a lot of folks even say that the 8820 could out-hustle the early 9600 combines that came after this. And that's why I think the John Deere 8820 is the coolest combine ever built. So fast forward to today, I am 23 years old, and guess what? I own one of these legendary machines. Sure, it's 45 years old, needs a little bit of work, but you better believe I couldn't be happier. Owning this combine makes me feel like I'm stepping into that picture that I've admired my entire life. And it's not just a piece of equipment. It's a piece of history. And it's still got swagger. So I spent the first part of this video bragging up my combine. Now I get to put it to the test by seeing if it'll start. It was 20 degrees overnight. It's about 25 degrees now, and the sun's only been out for an hour and a half, and I did not have the block heater plugged in last night. So we'll see. Okay, old girl. I know it's really cold outside, but I believe in you. It turns over incredibly good. Batteries are good. Oh, it's close. I gotta let that starter cool down. I need to plug it in. Well, I guess that clearly demonstrates some of the drawbacks to owning a piece of equipment from the 1980s. So, little note to future self. If you're in the middle of combine season and it's gonna be a cold night, go put it next to an outlet somewhere and plug that block heater in. You know, it'd probably also help if I replaced that starting fluid can with something that actually had starting fluid in it. Okay, I guess we're gonna see if the starting fluid button works, the ether start, because it definitely has not been plugged in long enough. No shit. There we go. Yeah. You guys know how weird it is to get in a combine and not be sitting directly centered in the combine over the feeder house? Bought this combine over by Albert Lea, Minnesota. and I had about an 85-mile drive home, and it was weird. It took like 6 hours to get here. I filmed the whole drive home, but here's a 10-second clip that basically summarizes the entire thing. It's got it going on. Stacy's mom has got it going on. Anyways, here's how you drive one of these old girls. You got a 4-speed gearbox here, no clutch. So you just kind of get her over into third. I guess we're gonna go second. And then here's your hydrostat. So that's forward. And then that's reverse. And that's all there really is to it. Let's see if I can get it in third now. Yeah, there we go. Bam. Okay, shut this bad boy off. Let's just pull this all the way out. Yeah, I gotta replace this cable. That's a part I've already ordered. So before I give you guys a tour of my new combine, I want to give a big shout out to my friend Doc. Doc is a legendary combine mechanic from my local area here. In fact, he worked on my dad's 8820 back in the day. And I got him to come with me and look over this combine with me before I bought it, because I have no idea what I'm looking at in these older combines. In fact, newer combines, I wouldn't really know a whole lot either. So he came out and he kind of did a little inspection with it with me, and overall he gave it a pretty good thumbs up. He said a lot of the wear parts have been replaced recently. It's had a few key upgrades done to it that kind of needed to be done to these combines, and it was one of the nicer mechanical combines that he's seen in a while. So Doc, really appreciate you coming out, because I would have had no clue what to look at with this combine. So this is a 1980 model year 8820, which it came out in 79 and 80. They had 200 horsepower, and in 81 they came out with 225 horsepower. So I got a little bit less horsepower than some of the later ones, but for what I'm doing, I don't think I'm ever gonna notice a difference. There's a couple other upgrades they made in 81 too, which mine actually does have. They updated it. But before we get into that, you may be thinking to yourself, especially if you're not, really used to older machinery, this combine looks a fair amount different than modern machines. In the early 2000s, John Deere released the rotor combine, which uses a rotor that is parallel to the flow of material through the combine to thresh and separate the grain. This is the most common type of combine used in the United States today. My 8820 is a conventional combine, or a walker combine, which uses a cylinder that is perpendicular to the flow of material through the combine. Any material that gets through the cylinder, which is located at number 3, will eventually go down the cleaning chute to number 13. So let's say I'm combining soybeans and there's some unthreshed pods that make it to the back. They will fall through a grate and into the tailings elevator, which will bring that unclean grain back up to number 7, which will go through the cylinder a second time. All the clean grain in the combine will eventually make its way up to number 9 into the grain tank. Now what about the straw? What happens to all that excess material? Well, in this diagram, number 5 is the beater. Now the beater grabs that straw and excess material from the cylinder and throws it onto the straw walkers, or number 10. The straw walkers throw the straw back all the way to the back of the combine, where it falls on the straw choppers, number 16, which will then chop up the excess material and throw it out the back of the combine. So now that you know how the two different kinds of combines work, I'm just going to kind of show you some of the pieces that you saw in the animation and cutaway here. So right up here underneath the feeder house, that's my rasp bars right there. They're what do the threshing against the concave. And now if I go to the back of the machine, and hopefully we can see this. So the threshing takes place way up there, and then this right here, these are called the sieves. These basically just do a little bit extra grain separation. So air blows through here, so it tries to blow any material, foreign material, out the back, while catching the soybeans right here, dropping them down under, and then going into the clean grain elevator. Now, what happens if all the straw, all the material, that goes in the straw walkers up above, and I believe I actually already got this panel open, I do. So these are called the straw walkers. They're attached to kind of like a crankshaft, and they kind of do a movement like this, kind of throw the straw up and over and then out the back, where it then gets hit by, it's kind of icy, by my chopping unit, which chops up the straw and then gets flung out the back and distributed. Now, I mentioned the clean grain elevator, and that was actually one of the big changes that they made between 1980 and 1981. The 1979 and 80 models had a smaller clean grain elevator. So this is the elevator that takes all the clean grain from the threshing unit up to the hopper. Now, in 79 and 80, because they were smaller, this was often a point of bottleneck. The clean grain elevator couldn't take the clean grain up as fast as the combine could take it in through the feeder house, and you would often plug stuff up down here and then blow some belts. My dad said on his 1979 model it was something they did quite often. So on this particular combine, you notice that this paint on this clean grain elevator is a lot nicer than the fuel tank and the shield next to it. That is because they replaced it and upgraded it with the bigger model. So it's like 1.5 inches or 2 inches wider than the stock clean grain elevator, so I shouldn't have any issues with plugging anything up back there. And then along with that, when you upgrade the clean grain elevator, you also have to upgrade the boot and the auger tube. So if I open the side of the hopper here, you notice the paint on the auger tube, and then the boot down there is also a lot nicer than kind of everything else. And all the same thing, they had to replace all of it, so that's all pretty new. The cross augers on the bottom look really good. Close this up. Kind of a nice little door to get in there. And while I'm up here, the stock hopper could hold, I believe it was like 215 bushels, and then the previous owner added this nice little hopper extension on the top. So I don't know what I can hold now. I'm probably close to 300-ish, which in 250 bushel corn, going to be kind of important. So I mentioned earlier in the video that the 8820 was the first combine that could run a 12-row corn head. Well, the first John Deere one. I think Gleaner of all people actually beat him to the punch with a 12-row head. But so that was kind of the big deal with the horsepower upgrade, was that with the extra 25 horsepower you could run a 12-row head. Now, I don't think hardly anyone runs a 12-row head on these combines anymore because, well, the average grain yield in 1981 was like 150, 160 bushels. Now it's, well, in our area, 220 to 250. You're not running a 12-row head on these things. More like a 6 or an 8-row. I have not bought a corn head yet. I'm kind of looking right now for either a 6 or 8-row. I really don't care. I do have a bean head bought though. But back to the combine itself, mechanically, there's not a whole lot I have to do. A lot of the wear parts were replaced. It has a lot of new sprockets, a lot of new pulleys. All the chains look pretty good. A lot of the chains have to be tightened, like the feeder house here is a bit loose. Like if you crawl underneath here, probably need to tighten that up a bit. And then the clean grain elevator chain, that's loose. I think they just did all that for storage, loosened all the chains up. But I mean, the pulleys are all nice and straight. I think Doc said there's one I had to adjust somewhere. I don't remember which one. A lot of sprockets were brand new on it. So, I mean, tighten and lube a few chains mechanically, I could probably take this to the field tomorrow. However, there is some electronical problems that I will address eventually here in an upcoming video. I got some parts ordered. Of course, I got all new LED lights ordered for this thing as well, because I probably will be doing some combining at night. I did manage to find a rear wheel assist version, and I did test it out here when I got it home. It does work, which is pretty cool. Another upgrade that I was told this had was something with the spreader back here. I'm not quite for sure what is different. I'm sure that someone watch this video will see the difference, but I remember when I first looked at the combine, we walked in the shed from this angle, and one of the first things that Doc said was, oh, I see they did the upgrade back here. I bet this spread's a lot nicer than it used to. So I don't know what is different here, but I bought a 25-foot bean head. It's over there. I'll show it to you guys here in a minute. But the previous owner said that with this setup, it spread over that 25-foot very nicely. The unloading auger is a bit dinged up on the end, and it definitely needs a new rubber boot. That's all pretty simple. I should just be able to kind of hammer that out and put a new boot on it, call it good. It was also welded right there. It's probably really hard to see, but it looked like it got dinged up a little bit, and then they welded it, reinforced it a bit. But as long as it works, I really don't care about that too much. So overall, I'm pretty excited for this machine. It's the paint is definitely faded, but for the most part, it's all there and in pretty good condition. I think if I got someone out here to polish and ceramic coat it, this thing would really shine, but it's kind of expensive. So let me know down below if you think that I should go ahead and get this thing polished up and make it really, really shine, or if I should just wait on that. Like, if you guys really want to see this thing shine and you want to see a video on that, I will 100% do it. But you need to let me know. Another thing that's quite a bit different about these combines is the engine is right next to the cab. And, well, I think people were built smaller in the 80s, because this door is actually pretty hard to get through to get from the cab to the engine compartment. And I'm pretty skinny, I'm just tall. So definitely not made for tall people. But right here is the latch for the engine compartment right there. And then you just give this a good old yank. It's kind of a two-hander job. It's also frozen down. You lift that up and out of the way, and here's your engine. I don't remember, I know it's a 6-cylinder. I don't remember the like cubic inches or whatever it all has. But yeah, there she is. Got a little bit of rat poison there just in case, because this thing probably will be sitting outside a bit. Of course, I already got my NOCO battery maintainer on it, even though these are like brand new batteries. This one's October 2024 and this one's September 2024. And being in the cab of one of these things is kind of funny, because the new combines, it's all buttons on a joystick. Here, there's 2 buttons in the entire combine. We got the horn, which does work, and then we got the ether start button, which I just found out also works, which is fantastic. I guess we do have these buttons too, where you can view your ground speed, engine RPM, fan RPM, or shaft RPM. But so this is how you run this combine. So obviously you got your gauges and everything over here. This right here engages a separator. So you push that forward, separator engaged, bring it back, disengage. I showed you the gearbox earlier, 3, 4, 1, and 2. The hydrostat, this lever right here raises and lowers the feeder house. This side over here, if you're running a bean head, this will raise and lower the reel on the bean head. Got your brakes down there. The steering wheel does tilt, which I'm kind of jealous about, because the Highboy sprayer, which has the exact same cab as this combine, does not have a tilting steering wheel. I want to know why John Deere decided to put a tilting steering wheel in the combine, but not the sprayers. Come on, Deere. But back here, this is your throttle. Pretty self-explanatory. You got your separator speed here. And honestly don't know what this one is. I'm trying to think. Not fan. That must be RAS bar speed, I'm guessing. And then you adjust your concave clearance down here, and here's your concave settings. Small grain, 1 to 12 turns open. There's a really wide range there. Soybeans, 8 to 17. Corn, 12 to 35. And clean out, you just basically open her all the way up. So I'm guessing you close it all the way, and then you count how many turns open you do, and then you could adjust that from there. So that's all with this right down here. And this right here is a parking brake, and I think this is the feeder house reverser. On the left hand side here, you got 2 levers. This is the hydraulic swing on the unloading auger, and this is what engages the unloading auger down here. Underneath the seat right here, there's this little door, and this right here is the top of the tailings return elevator. So the tailings return comes up here, and it tosses it right below your seat. And I've heard from multiple people who have driven these combines that they used to sit here with this door open, because you can hear the tailings hitting the top of this cover right here, And that's how they knew how to set the combine, how to set the speed. So they're going through the field, and all of a sudden they hear a lot of returns hitting that little cover. They would slow down a little bit, so trying to keep the grain more forward in the combine, and it would do a better job separating, or they would try to open it up a little bit or something. But we do have heat and air conditioning. The heat does work. Obviously haven't tried the air conditioning because, well, and then I do have a AM and FM radio with one speaker that kind of works. Oh, I missed one of the most coolest things about this combine, the dial-o-matic. So in 1980, they did have header height control. Actually, I think the dial-o-matic came afterwards. I think this is probably added after this combine was made. But this is the header height control. So you have 3 different settings, 1, 2, and 3. And like my platform head, my bean head, I believe has a sensor bar on the bottom. And this is how you set your automatic header height control. This little dial right here. That's super cool. And I've actually been told it works pretty good. This particular combine has 4,163 hours-ish on it now. I think it was like 141.58. No, it was less than that. It was like 41.50 when I bought it. By the time I drove it home and I've been moving around and playing with it and learning about it, it's gone up a little bit. But that is kind of on the higher side, but they've replaced so much stuff internally in this combine. I don't feel too bad about that. And I can verify it does work. I did make sure it worked when I bought it. I also missed this lever up here. This is what engages the separator, this little switch right here. The rear window is kind of fogged up right now, but I do love how much visibility you have into the grain tank. Quite a bit more visibility, actually, I would say, even than the new John Deere combines. And I can basically see the entire grain tank, and I'm actually sitting up fairly high in it, so I can see what my grain sample looks like for a very long time. So I also got some goodies with the combine. I got a box that has a few belts and filters and different things in it. But the biggest thing that I got with this combine is, well, first of all, operator's manual. Second of all, the technical manual. This is probably a 5 to 6 inch thick book held together by literal bolts. And this is also known as the 8820 Bible. This tells you how to do everything with this combine. I mean, this will give you step-by-step instructions on how to overhaul the motor. I already got a couple of sections sectioned off. The lights, instruments, and accessory circuits. And then way back in here, I got some electrical diagrams sectioned off for some of the electrical issues that this thing's having. Looking at this, it looks like it'll be pretty easy to do, but yeah, that'll be in the future. So super excited to get this. I don't know how much these books are worth, but I bet they're getting pretty hard to find. So for the most part, that's a John Deere Turbo 8820. I do have lots of plans with this combine. I think I'm going to basically redo the entire interior of the cab, make it really nice, fix some electrical issues that we're having, which I will address in a future video, upgrade the lights, potentially get some new tires on the front and back. We'll see. We'll kind of see what the budget brings with this combine. And then also, if you guys would really like to see it, maybe do some polishing and ceramic coating to the old girl. But I paid $9 grand for the combine, and now we're gonna go across the road here and take a look at the bean head I bought. So like I said, I am still looking for a corn head, probably either a 643 or 843 corn head. But this is the bean head I bought. It is a 925F, so 25-foot header. F means fully fingered flex head. So you can see up here, the auger has fingers all the way across it. Now, not all of them did. Some of them only had fingers in the middle section, and then the beans wouldn't feed very good towards the center. So when I first bought the combine, I was looking for either a 30-foot or a 25-foot head. I was told that the 25-foot head just feed a little bit better and a little bit nicer to use. And I bought this head from the people that I bought the combine from. So I think that this was the head that was used on the combine for the past few years. And it is, in terms of old bean heads, this one's really nice. The reel has extremely little slop in it. There is no slop but in the wobble box. If you spin the belt in the wobble box, is that on this side or the other side? It's on this side. If you reach in here and you spin this belt of the wobble box, there is no delay between when you spin the belt And when the sickle turns, which means you have a good tight wobble box, now everything's frozen so I couldn't get it spin up now. The auger still has a lot of paint left on it, and there's no holes in the floor, which is a pretty big deal. The reel, for the most part, is really, really nice. There's a few little fingers that could probably, like these 2 fingers should probably be adjusted and whatnot. But overall, I'm pretty happy with this bean head. I think I overpaid for it a little bit, but it's really, really hard finding a nice condition bean head. Most of them are absolutely wore out. So there's very, very little I have to do to this bean head. The only thing I really have to do is, when they were using it, they did snag the end snout and the end shield. So I do have brand new ones sitting in the shed, but basically I have to, maybe looks like they may bent this a little bit here. Maybe bend this a little bit, put the side shield back on, put the snout back on, and should be ready to go to the field. So for the 925F and the homemade header cart, I paid $9,500. I think that was a few grand too high, but by the time I spent a few days driving around the country trying to find other heads, this one was there. I was able to pick it up at the same time as the combine, and it was really nice. So I spent a couple extra grand because I figured that's probably an extra couple grand I won't have to spend fixing a piece of junk head. So the funny part about the soybean head that I actually did not know until after I bought it is, well, my dad and my uncle, they use the 900 series bean heads for a really, really long time. And if we go upstairs here in our shop, if I go over here, there is a whole box of 900 series header parts. So I got 2 boxes of knives here, or sickle sections, or whatever you want to call these things. Little cutters, got 2 boxes full of those. And then I got an entire box. Oh my gosh, this box is heavy. I got a full box full of guards. Some of them are a little bit used, but they're all really nice condition. So, I mean, unless I break something major, I really shouldn't have to buy any parts for my head for at least a couple of years. Wait a second. Oh my gosh, there's more over here. This is fantastic. The funny part is that I'm pretty sure I asked my dad to throw all this away last winter when we were cleaning up the shop, and he didn't. And now I'm super glad he didn't, because this is actually going to save me a ton of money not having to buy parts for a year or 2. So there we go. That's kind of the tour of the combine. And now, guys, if you think this combine's cool, if you want to see more content on it, go hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. That's how YouTube recommends my videos to other people, is by seeing engagement with my audience. And I read all the comments. I try to reply to as many as I possibly can. And oh my gosh, I'm so excited. There's gonna be a lot of content coming in the future with this combine. So like I said, if you want to see that, get subscribed. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.